All right, everybody, welcome back live at Drew's house, another edition. My name is Drew Moholland. This is my wife, Sarah Conway. Hope everybody's doing all right. Is it like brighter in our kitchen today?
There's something different. I think we're just sitting at a different angle.
Oh.
We're right under this light, so.
Yeah, we have the clock, but less wine bottles. Interesting.
Yeah, we're not as much in the middle as we usually are.
It's funny, interesting. Set designer, please. How you doing? I played a lot of golf this weekend. I went up to Maine, played golf with my dad, my cousins. It was fun.
I stayed here.
Stayed with the dogs.
Yeah.
Good weekend. So that was fun. I played pretty well. Hit the ball often. Played a lot. It was fun. Did you miss me?
Of course.
Coffee, cheers. It has been hot. Yeah, you can use that. It's been hot here. How were the dogs coping?
Henry's pretty much just staying in the AC and sleeping all day long.
Oh, yeah.
We did this weekend. We went every morning. We got up early before it got too hot, and we did like trails and stuff, and they went swimming.
Yeah, they like the morning. Do you do hiking?
I wouldn't really call it hiking. It's more like trails. There were no like mountains or anything.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
Borderline hike?
Yeah, I feel like hiking is more like you're going up to a view. There was no view.
You know, when I was away, did you see the baseball story? The Marlins, the whole clubhouse has tested positive for COVID-19, at least most of it.
No, I didn't see it.
It's not. And then that's not good, because the teams they played, baseball might be in trouble. Sports is going to be tricky. It's going to be very tricky in 2020.
Yeah.
You care very much about sports.
I'm not worried about the sports.
Prospect of football season being gone. Yeah. They're going to have to find a bubble. NBA and the NHL. That's who's doing it right. Soccer. They're going to find a bubble. You got to isolate. You got to go to a place and just isolate.
But didn't basketball actually try and find a bubble?
They're all at Disney.
Soccer. But is that working for them?
Yeah. Soccer's almost through. And NBA so far so good. They haven't really started games. They've been there for a while. And hockey jetted up to Canada.
So those people who are there in the bubble, is their family there?
No. At a certain point in like the stages, they will allow family to come in under strict testing. But for the beginning, no.
That actually has to be pretty difficult.
I think it's the only way it works, though. If you want to get paid to go to work, that's how you're going to have to do it. Because look what happens with baseball.
Yeah, but what if they told you in order for you to go to work, you couldn't, and you had kids and stuff, you couldn't see your kids for this amount of time?
I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, they have to, what they do is they play sports for a living. You know?
It's more important.
Like baseball's like a couple months, you know? They could have gone
a couple months, I guess.
They could have gone to a bubble.
Isn't the basketball season is like pretty long, isn't it?
No, but they're just finishing. They're just finishing at the end of the season. It's not like MLS. They just played a tournament, one tournament. You know, you went away for a tournament. What are you looking at? Bad hair day?
Maybe sports can come back. I am just trying to find any reason for sports not to come back. I think it's been very nice not having it on the television.
You know what I wanted? You did find that to be nice. One other thing I was going to mention, but one thing I did think was interesting was that like the Phillies played the Marlins, I think it was, and the clubhouse attendant was one of the ones who got COVID. And they're finding that so much of this, they think it's actually not being transmitted from the field, open air, but it's like the travel, it's, you know, they're not in clubhouses, they've eliminated those, but the fact that a clubhouse guy attendant caught it, that means it was the one like helping these guys behind the scenes. It wasn't the guy who was out there on the field, which tells you which leads me to this. How are kids going to get on a school bus in the fall?
Oh, you want to go there?
Well, I did.
I don't know. I really don't know any of the plans.
You put kids in a classroom, in a school bus, what are they going to do? Disinfect the whole bus? Okay.
I don't even want to think about it because I'm waiting until they give us actual confirmed.
Sarah's a teacher.
What we're doing.
For those of you who forget.
Before then, I don't really want to know.
Okay.
Because it's going to keep changing.
I've stressed you out in the intro to this show.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to have the show back.
Good for you.
My guest today, on a very hot week where there's been some thunderstorms, but we're coming off another heat wave. It's been a very hot summer. Dean Devore, weatherman, Accuweather meteorologist out of Pennsylvania. You hear him on stations all across the East Coast. He's also got some other interesting stuff that he does, which is part of the reason why I want him on. So let's bring in Dean Devore. All right, Dean Devore, Accuweather meteorologist. You hear him in Boston. Dean, great to have you on. Hello. Give you the wave virtually there.
Hey, there you go.
Well, Dean, how many cities do we actually have you on for people that aren't just from Boston? We know you get you on WBZ, but where else around the?
Yeah, I mean, I'm focused, Drew. Boston, obviously my most important favorite city that I forecast for Accuweather on WBZ. I'm focused in 1010 winds in New York, WBBM in Chicago, KMOX St. Louis, and where else? I'm probably forgetting people. That focus, kind of changes as we go through the day. WWJ in Detroit. I do some national shows that get on a couple of hundred stations in the morning and, millions with AccuWeather.com and stuff like that. And, it's been really good over the last couple of months. We've been really putting a lot of attention to our weekly podcast at AccuWeather. It's called Everything Under the Sun. So I'm joining your podcast. One of these days, I'll get you to return the favor to join mine. We spent about 10 weeks really concentrating on COVID. We've been spending the last 9 weeks or so concentrating on the summer and how COVID and everything else is going on with that. So that's a good listen if you like weather and how it kind of dovetails into your life and other subjects.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of COVID, I see this is life from home, right? Or is this working from home?
Yeah, this has been the situation. We got knocked out. AccuWeather was very, very proactive. We do a lot of business in China. In fact, we are the only private weather company that has set up a company. If you know how China works, you don't get your own company in China. You set up a company with the government, and so we're work with China. So we are obviously worldwide, and so yeah, we very early on, early March, because of my partner traveling, I got restricted out of the building. Had to set up my own studio. So I'm a weather guy, but I'm also sports announcing and play-by-play guy, and you know that, Drew. And so my sports announcing allowed me to set up a pretty good home studio. I think those of us who do that for a living and are at the whim of wherever gym or whatever sporting place you go to and hopefully have the right connections, you can kind of make something chicken salad out of chicken poop, you know that. Yeah. So I did that early on. And so I've been back and forth a little bit. It's sometimes at this point, the way we're constructed at work, we're still 90% of our company is off site right now. So it sometimes makes it easier to do it this way.
Is there any challenges with actually doing the forecast from home?
Speed of information that has to come between my home office and then, when I'm at AccuWeather, I mean, the pipeline that we're getting in terms of the internet is amazing. But then you kind of reduce that. So some things take about a time to time and a half is longer. Communication, it's a lot easier for me to walk out of my studio at AccuWeather, the headquarters, and walk into a room that has 25 meteorologists in it, and we talk about the weather, than trying to solicit opinions on Slack. Yeah. Do you like Slack? I don't know.
I don't have to use it too often. But it's certainly a big newsroom.
We've really gone to that here at AccuWeather, and it's just anytime you and I think in some ways the communication and all this has gotten better. I'm actually communicating directly more with anchors and stuff. It's not as easy to get the middle person between all of us. So sometimes it's just easier to go directly to make sure we're all doing the right information. So in some ways, I guess communication is better. I'm still worried about speed and stuff like that sometimes in this setup.
Well, you're not in the backyard like a lot of these TV doing it. I remember before Barry Burbank retired, he was doing shows from his backyard in his weather studio. I thought that was pretty
cool. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and there's a famous station in Northeast Pennsylvania, one of the best news stations. In fact, I think their ratings at one point, like 99% of the people in Northeast Pennsylvania watch this news and 1% split between all the other. But WNEP and their guys always did the backyard stuff. That's okay, except when the bear comes to the backyard in the morning and kind of messes your forecast up.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I always like that story because you've been around for you've been through it. What is the story that comes to mind? Is there something that you always think back of? Well, that put us in a bit of a tough spot, and you guys
Uh,
get creative on your feet.
yeah. I mean, well, with my sports announcing and being the voice of Beaver Stadium, which
Yeah, let's go there because that's interesting.
yeah. All right. So, kind of dovetailing with my meteorology career has been a sports announcing career. In fact, sports really was my first love. If you had asked me back when I was a kid, I probably had two goals. One was to be the play-by-play voice of Penn State football, and another was I actually wanted to host the Today Show.
Yes.
Well, it's just because it was a cool gig. I love that morning, and I guess I still love mornings. Maybe that's why I still torture myself and get up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning to do this stuff. But the mornings, it's like everything's bright, fresh, happening. The Today Show, great interviews. It wasn't just the news; it was so many other things. And I guess that's why I do like working in morning radio. We're kind of that magazine for people in the morning. So, sports announcing, I got some great memories. Adam Talaferro, who was a Penn State player that I saw got injured. I don't remember that story back in the 90s, got injured at Ohio State and didn't think people didn't think he'd walk again. And then the next year he kind of ran out in their stadium. That was one of my first years announcing. Obviously, the story at Penn State certainly has been something to watch over the last 10 or 15 years. Proud of what our school has done to kind of get us back to people thinking about us for excellence in athletics and academics as opposed to other things.
Going through all that, because those were tough years there after the Sandusky case and all that. I know that was a tough comeback, but I think Bill O'Brien helped. I know. Is he remembered fondly?
Obi, yeah, Obi. I love Obi. Obi and I got close early. I saw him as an opportunity. He wanted to bridge that gap. There had been a gap, I think, between football and stuff. So what was it like? Well, first of all, I know everybody in that story pretty well.
Yeah.
I know, I wasn't real close to the Sanduskys, but I did deal with him on a good bit personally and professionally, especially through Second Mile. Second Mile was a huge thing. That was the charity situation that and so it was just there's still a lot of people, Drew, scratching our heads that I'm not sure that we'll ever know everything or whether or not it all was true or not. I do know that due diligence needed to be done not only by Penn State, but I know there's a lot of us that think that maybe the state and other folks maybe got off a little bit in terms of not getting as much responsibility. But look, we took that, we knew that was one spot. And like so many things, I think it was one of the first, I guess, illustrations to me about how the media can take a narrative, which isn't necessarily the right narrative, but fit it to what they're hearing and saying and want to say and want to do with it. And then kind of run with it in a certain direction. And I think we saw a lot of that. And then it gave me pretty pause to understand the power that the media has. And one thing that I've always tried to do, and you and I actually talk about this sometimes in the morning, I'm very careful. You know me, Drew. I don't like to hype when it's not there. I'll hype the heck out of something when it's really there and dangerous. And the problem with weather sometimes is stuff can ramp up to a point where you didn't think it was going to be as bad and it can get worse quickly. But how many times do we think and hear and hype, oh, it's going to be the world's worst storm, and then it just kind of limps in. So I think there's always balance in those things. And I think the good thing is when professionals behind the scenes in media like you and I talk them out, have our little fights between ourselves but we're always trying to protect the listener. And I understand that. I just think we have to always be careful about making sure as a media we're responsible in telling the right story and keeping people understanding that, sometimes that can change and you got to keep following up and we'll keep you up to date, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think some people, it's a good point to make. Some people don't realize how much behind the scenes stuff does go into those conversations. It's usually, some people are under the impression you're just walking on the air with whatever you got.
Oh, no. And again, I think the good newsrooms, the ones that survive, like WBZ, like 1010 Wins, like WBBM in Chicago, I mean, they have those conversations and they're honest with each other. and they will keep working hard to gain everybody's trust because, if you keep hyping something and it doesn't pan out, eventually the ratings are going to go away. The people using your service is going to go away. We see that in the everyday media. But those that are telling the true stories and keeping people up to date and keeping the opinion down, I think those ratings are growing. And we see that in news all the time.
A Penn State football game is one of those things that I'm going to ask you this question in a second. I would like to know what it's like to announce to the Penn State Stadium on a Saturday, because I think that's a moment that, you just have to experience. But I do want to ask one more serious one before we go to that. I know you weren't necessarily close with all those guys, but you said you knew the program. What was it like for Joe Paterno in those final years? Was it tough to watch?
Yeah, very tough because, look, we all make mistakes. You and I make mistakes every day. We have to apologize to our wife or our children or those people, and we all make mistakes. And so when you have a huge body of work and then something doesn't fit that narrative, and then that's all that the narrative becomes, it's frustrating to watch that huge body of work. And I think some of the vitriol at Penn State at times was pushed back because Penn State had set itself apart a little bit as being on the pedestal, success with honor, the greatest of this, the greatest show in college football, all that stuff. And then when you put yourself out there, I think, you'll get more of an opportunity. So it was tough, but what was equally kind of interesting was just how fast his health. Now we knew those health problems were there. A lot of us did, but it was almost like he was heartbroken in some ways to everything that had gone on. And then it's been tougher to watch the family have to deal with that because I know Sue very well. I had known her from working with Second Mile, but also she was huge with Special Olympics. She did a lot of stuff in the state of Pennsylvania with that. And I've known Jay, one of his youngest sons, pretty well over the years. And so it's just been hard to see them navigate that. What's that?
Jay was an assistant coach, right?
He played quarterback, and he walked on. In fact, there was a good story. We used to play Temple all the time, and back in the days before they had the Lincoln Financial Field, it was in the old Veterans Stadium where the Eagles and back then, like for those games, it was like 4,000 Temple fans and 60,000 Penn State fans, even it was their home game. I remember he got in one, and there's a great story where he was like the fourth string quarterback, but we were winning like 45-0. And I think he came into the huddle and said, "Yeah, guys, you're not dreaming. This is really me in here." So, but Jay continues to be active. Not only he's been, and I think he's trying to get elected if he hasn't already been elected as a member of the board of trustees, and so I know he's trying to work to continue to keep Penn State moving in the right direction. That brings we could have a whole nother comment. I'm really worried about what is to become not only of big sports in college, but higher education in general, given what's going on now with COVID and everything else. I think that's going to be one of those places where we may not see the same kind of higher education system that we saw going into this going forward.
I'll run with that one right now because I don't know if you're following the news here in New England, but 6 New England Patriots have just said no to the football season.
Yeah, and that's going to be growing. In fact, I'm just lining up my Everything Under the Sun podcast guests. I've got some people, Tom Ackerman, who's the sports director out at KMOX, and he's going to get the baseball angle. David Jones, who's very big on Comcast Philly and has written for Penn State as long as I've been around. And then I'm going to try to get Kim Jones from New York City, NFL Network fan, to talk about the NFL. But this is getting interesting. And I kind of knew when I was on vacation on the Cape a couple of weeks ago when the Big Ten announced it was going to be conference only, I just felt like that was their opening salvo to say, hey, guys, get ready. I'm prepared, Drew, I may even come up to the Cape in September. The weather may be nice. I may not have anything to do, and I may just come and take a week's vacation up where it may be nicer.
Well, what does Beaver Stadium hold? What does that place unpack then?
The capacity is listed about, I think, just around 107,000. You know how this works. Tickets sold is always counted, and then they count everybody. I'm telling you, everybody that comes in. So if you are covering the media, covering for any part of the media, and you're in the press box, you're counted. If you've parked cars and the people that park cars actually come in the second half, they get counted. All the people working underneath, and they've got a couple of thousand volunteers mostly to work all the concession stands. They're counted. So the number of the biggest crowds goes up above 110,000. What is that like to sit there and talk to them? Well, first of all, I don't think about it. Remember that old Marsha, was it Marsha Brady and the Brady Bunch and Greg? If you got to speak to a lot of people, imagine them all in their underwear. Although 100,000 people, I don't think I'd want to imagine in their underwear. So I just kind of try to, what I try to do, Drew, is I try to be and say the things that I'd want to know if I was in the stands and I didn't have 7 eyes and all the things that I can look at. And so I try to keep people informed. I try to make sure that, with some level of enthusiasm, that they're informed and entertained. Certainly the breaks. I mean, I'm basically like it's like a radio show, really. We do the first down and then the timeout on the field, and then we're into like a 3-minute stop set, really, with all kinds of stuff. Some of it is not me, but a lot of I'm reading, and then I'm right back to the game. So first thing, never ask me the score of the game after the game, because I will never know it, without actually looking at it, because it's just everything is each individual element to me. It's hard to put everything together. And then probably don't talk to me for about 2 or 3 hours after a game, because I like to sit in silence sometimes.
Come down a little bit.
Yes, try to chill out after that.
I've always thought too, like those guys that do the PA for those football games. I mean, you said you're a sports guy, and that makes sense. I mean, you have to be knowledgeable, because it's not like somebody's there reading you here. You're going to say this, right? You're not reading up a script. I mean, you're seeing.
You really have to know the rules. You have to know the game, especially like when the ref mic goes out, and you got to be the one trying to figure out exactly what they're doing down there and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then you've got to be. I think you need to know broadcasting and how to talk to people. And whether I'm talking, somebody said to me the other day, it's funny, when I go into Beaver Stadium, you say ladies and gentlemen, but I always feel like you're talking to me. And that's kind of really the key to any of this. And I guess why I've had some success on the radio. I think I know how to try to talk to you, even though if I'm not talking directly to you, something I'm going to say is going to resonate with you. And that connection between you and me hopefully will keep you coming back for more.
Yeah, that must be a pretty cool compliment to get. I wonder, can you picture a Beaver Stadium 25% full for a Saturday football game? Or oh, lost you there, Dean. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. So I'll just pick up off of that. Yeah, I don't know, Drew. I'm having trouble with thinking about that. I'm having actually more trouble with really understanding that I believe that there may be
and I think we lost Dean for one moment. We'll try to get him back here in a second. 25%, we got you back. There you go. What would it be like speaking to a 25% full Beaver Stadium?
Yeah, I'm having trouble with that, Drew. And honestly, I'm almost of the opinion, and I'll say this, I would rather them just not do a season, and rather than try to do it half, however you want to complete that blank. I just, I think to a point, what are we doing? If we're trying to just get the TV money out of it, which is really kind of what it seems, if in some of these situations for the FBS schools, I was really disappointed the NCAA kicked the can this past Friday down the road a couple of weeks in determining, because I believe once they decide, if they do decide, and I do think they will, is to cancel the fall championships, there is going to be very little cover for the FBS, the big schools who aren't governed by the NCAA and the Bowl Championship Series in that regard. I think there's going to be very little cover for them to play any kind of games or any kind of championship. The other thing is, I'm getting more and more convinced that this may be an opportunity for something that I've been worried about, going back to CTE and all these problems that we're starting to realize that football players have. Is this a time where the elite in college higher education who have not necessarily been fully on board with the football situation are using this as an opportunity to say, hey, football wasn't going to be a viable way to pay for things going forward. Maybe this is time to figure it out, and we go forward without football. Just throwing it out there. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities, especially when you hear some of the bigger schools and some of these bigger new ADs talking about downsizing, and that was even before COVID. So it's going to be an interesting couple of years here, I think, once this all settles out.
Again, we're joined here by Dean Devore. I wonder, Dean, I have a cousin who went to Penn State, and he told me, he tells me we have to do it someday. And he said, like being from here, which, Boston's not exactly the biggest like college football town.
No. I mean, BC, when it was, I remember Flutie days, that would seem to be the peak, and then it's kind of waned a bit again.
But it's different there, though. And he always says it's like you have no idea what it's like for that community, what football means there. Can you give us an idea, like for somebody from Boston, maybe more of a pro sports fan, what it's like?
Well, it's really just the day-to-day life of people, and then it's kind of like when you get in that summer time where you may have 3, 4, 5 camping trips lined up over the summer. Some are a little longer than others, and you got some places that you like to go to. Well, this is what everybody kind of builds to here. I mean, we're up to 7, sometimes, oh God forbid, 8 home games. And there's been years where we've had 9. We had one year we had 9 home games. And 4 or 5 in a row. So early season, the opponents are less, and then people just make the pilgrimage, and it's part of their life. I mean, look, people get up and, drive 2 or 3 hours at 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure they're the first in line to get that parking spot that they may have had for 20 years. They're going to set up this tailgate that, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 families may come together and contribute to. You start in the morning for an 8 p.m. game. You may be there till the next morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, just around your friends and family. And that's what it is. Now I've seen, I've been to Patriots games. I've been in the parking lot. The Bills games are the ones that are almost as close in terms of tailgating in my. Been to a few Bills games, and they got it right, man. If you ever get to a Bills game, stadium's not so great, but the outside is pretty cool and pretty close. But yeah, you're right. It's a different situation, and I think people, that's for a lot of people, that's all they have. They don't have the deep affinity to the pro teams like folks more in urban areas do.
Interesting. Did you? I'm going to wrap around here a little bit because I want to know, I know you're a sports guy, you said, and now, you're doing weather for all these stations, and you're just kind of a radio guy too. Was there all those things? Was there like a little bit of a piece? Did you know you wanted to be in radio, or did you know you just wanted to be in sports, or you wanted to be in weather, and here you go?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I mean, my early on in my first broadcasting goals were voice of Penn State football on the radio, back when radio was king. It's not that that could be a whole nother podcast. Radio's not dead. It's just different. Radio is audio, and audio doesn't just come from the radio. It comes from other things now. So, look, I think that, all of the things that I've done, I've been blessed that one thing has led into another. My days as a student, I was involved in our marching band. I was involved as a leader of our pep bands. I got to know people in athletics. I wanted to do sports. I got working in sports. I got some opportunities. I worked hard on each of those opportunities. I always loved the weather. I found a way to get back into the weather. I like communicating with people. And so maybe my life's an abject lesson. And if you really want to do something, keep working hard and doing it till you do it. But I think in the long run, when you're good at something, it comes out. And unfortunately, I'm good at communicating to and with people. And hopefully that can continue here for a few years. Would like to find ways that I wouldn't have to get up as early to talk to you, Drew, but we'll try to figure out how we can ease out of getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning here pretty soon.
Although I always say it's there is something that adrenaline rush that comes with being up ahead of everybody and knowing. It
does, yeah. There's almost like I'm getting a little peek at the world before you, blah 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 blah, and then I get to go out in the world earlier than other people and do a few fun things. But then
Yes.
I'm pretty exhausted by 6 or 7 p.m.
Exactly.
The worst of the schedule is the weekends because it's hard for me to try to adjust back to normalcy, and I just try not to anymore. If people get mad that I'm asleep by 6 or 7 or pretty sleepy, that's their problem, I guess.
What is the news story that you've been on the air for over the years that was kind of a strange day to be doing weather? Like there was just a story that was dominating the newscast so much that it was almost like you just wanted to get out of it.
The one day, remember we had that tornado that kind of went through the lower Cape Cod area.
Yeah.
That was a day that kind of came out of left field, and I remember being on the air, and then it was funny because just on my last Cape trip this past summer, we go on the Cape and we go all the way to P-Town and we just stay there. You don't have to go anywhere else if you go to P-Town. There's about everything in the world you could ever want around P-Town. But look, we did finally go down and spend a little bit of time this past trip down to Hyannis and then over to Harwich and those places that I can remember talking about, but I kind of knew them, maybe not spending much time down in that part of the Cape, but from driving through and then just, I'm one of those guys, I can look at a map and the geography sinks in and it kind of sticks there. It was just kind of neat to be able to see and then think about all the things. And I remember getting a lot of comments about, oh my God, you talked about that like you were there. And it's just like, well, yeah, because I've been there so many times. And so that was kind of cool. I remember early on in my broadcasting career, actually was the Friday before a football game. I wasn't doing as much. I wasn't doing the stadium back then, but I was doing pre and post game for football. We had a hostage standoff that actually closed the area right around the stadium. Didn't actually open up till like Friday night, early Saturday morning. There was still some question marks about the game and being picked up by ABC News, doing reports live on ABC News Radio and that kind of stuff. So, there's always been some amazing things. I think the thing about working in radio and broadcasting is the people, getting to know people like you, all the great anchors at BZ that I've gotten to be friends with over the years, just through this broadcasting and kind of sharing that common experience. It's been fun. And hopefully that continues. And I love working with BZ. We just signed a new 2-year extension from what I heard. So I guess you're stuck with me for a little bit longer.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, Dean Devore, this has been fun. You want to do a quick rapid fire? I always have to end. This is how we
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
All right. Random as can be. Let's go favorite sport. We'll start easy.
Lacrosse. Love the sport of lacrosse. That was my first PA announcing job, kind of led to everything else. It's fast. It has scoring. It has physical. If there's a sport that can replace football in terms of the amount of interest on a college level, that one may have it. I don't think basketball translate like football does.
Okay. Lacrosse. Very good. All right. What's the favorite musician?
Billy Joel. Old school, more so lately. I'm an EDM guy now, and so Armin van Buuren is my guy right now.
All right. Best concert you ever been to?
Billy Joel. 6 of them on my lifetime, plus one. I saw it twice. He did that kind of little. He did almost, it was like a lecture series, but he would play a few songs during it. But Billy Joel concert, got to meet him backstage. Love that. That's my favorite.
All right. It doesn't have to be football. I know you're involved in so many sports over there. The Penn State win that sticks with you the most memorable.
Yeah, when we four-peated the NCAA Women's Volleyball Championship and then went ahead to three-peat again, 7 out of 9 years. Those all add up. I got to do 6 of those. It was awesome. Women's volleyball is a special sport to me. It's a great sport, fun sport, great athletes, great people, and that was a lot of fun.
Most memorable weather events in your news covering day? Was it the tornadoes?
Yeah, it was that tornado. And then also Sandy, we did a really good job with Sandy coming up the coast, and winds, I know, was real happy. And then also when Maria hit Puerto Rico, my partner is from Puerto Rico, and I was on the air, and especially on winds because they have so many Puerto Rican folks in the New York City area, and it was like a catch-22. I was still able to be in contact with our in-laws. They live in the heart of Metro San Juan, and we could communicate with them sporadically, but I was given information, and that it was so personal, but it I guess came off so well. So those kinds of things, yeah.
And last but not least, your advice to the young person who wants to get into radio.
If you want to get into, and I won't say radio, if you want to get into media and audio and broadcasting, find your voice, Be confident in your voice. Know what you're good at. Find people that can help you become better at what you're not. And then just listen before you talk. Listen before you talk. Yeah.
I like that one. Actually, I guess I lied. Can you predict the weather for the rest of the summer? I would like to know.
This is we're coming off of what, our second heat wave in 2 weeks here in New England. I would say we could even get one more. It's going to, if you've got vacation plans into September, keep them, maybe extend them. I think there's maybe some nice weeks on the Cape and the islands and the beaches here well into September, early October, my friend.
There you go. Dean Devore, man, it was a pleasure. This was nice.
Drew, it was awesome. I'd like to do this again, maybe opposite on my show. All right.
I'd love to do it. Return the favor. It'd be great.
Thanks.
We'll see you soon, bud. Thank you.
No problem, buddy. Sorry.
All right. There you go. There you have it. Dean Devore. I've worked with him for many years. Again, Accuweather meteorologist, Dean Devore, weather guy. But as you can tell, he does a whole lot more. They're stationed in Pennsylvania. He works the PA there. He's done some broadcasting gigs. He's as far as the weather goes in the morning, like you said, he's on Boston and New York and, several other cities too. But just for those two big ones, you can imagine how important that job is. So that was fun catching up with Dean. We don't really, usually my conversations with him have to be pretty quick and on the fly. So it was nice having a moment with him. And hopefully you found that interesting. I know a lot of you in Boston recognize that voice. So maybe nice to put the face with the name there, as they say. So very good. It's good to be back after my little weekend away in Maine. Good to see you all again virtually. Thank you to my wife, Sarah. Thank you to the dogs for being quiet. I think that's a couple shows in a row now where they have been quiet, which I appreciate very much. Live at Drew's house, another edition. Big thanks, Dean Devore. Big thanks, Sarah Conway. Again, my name is Drew Moholland. We'll see you all next time. All right. Bye-bye now.